Hey, Dylan.
Hey, Mike.
Dylan, you heard of Dream Build Play?
Yes?
You familiar with the dreaming, the building, and the playing?
Yeah. And the combination of those three
All three
abstract concepts.
all three together make a contest, actually.
Yes.
You can go to, I think it's dreambuildplay.com. Probably should have checked that before I started this segment.
We're not advertising them in this segment, so
We're not.
Who cares?
But in this contest, this year, the top 20 finalists, not just the winner, the top 20 finalists will be introduced to people who could publish your game, Xbox Live Arcade, maybe elsewhere. But obviously, it's Microsoft contest, so they're going to focus on XBLA. So unlike the prior years where they've said, like, the grand place winner XBLA contract, basically they put it down to this year money and top 20. We're going to, finalists, we're going to give you some conversations and put you in touch with some people and, see where it goes. It's almost kind of like what American Idol started doing.
Right.
At some point they realized, contestants realized on American Idol, it was better to be number 2 than number 1. Because number 2 had all the fame of making it to the final show without being locked into the publishing contract already.
Right.
And then, so basically, American Idol got smart, and basically all of the contestants signed the contract. They're all on the record label, whether or not they win. Because, that way they can get whoever becomes the most popular.
When you put it that way, it's not making Dream Build Play sound...
For an indie that
But you're not locked
busted out
into the
mainstream?
contract, so there you
No,
go.
you get introduced and you're not locked into it. You get introduced for an indie that's good. Now, the reason I mention that stuff is that the Sunburn game engine, games that have used Sunburn have made a strong showing in the past of finalists. None have won. There hasn't been a Sunburn gaming engine winner, but, as I was just saying, you don't need to be the winner. If you just want to get an audience with an Xbox Live Arcade publisher, then you just want to shoot for being a finalist. And rough facts here, okay? This is the truth. We're gonna keep it real, okay, Dylan? We're gonna keep it real on this podcast. Looks matter, Dylan.
Yes, they do.
Don't care what your mom told you, but looks are important. Looks matter, and they will be judging your game. I don't care what they say. I don't care if the judges say, like, oh, we account 20% of graphics or game, designers. Bullshit. Looks account for a lot. And you're willing to overlook things if the game looks good. Similar with a spouse or someone, or boyfriend or girlfriend, they're an idiot. But they're hot. You're willing to overlook certain things because looks count. This is the world that we live in.
You just admit to being a horrible person on
I'm just
shallow
keeping it real
on the
here.
end. Okay.
And you want your game to look well, so that we're going to overlook the fact that the game concept is stupid.
I think you're angling to get Dream Build Play flooded with a lot of games that we don't want.
I don't think I have to angle that hard for this to happen. But you can submit to Dream Build Play, Windows Phone 7, or Xbox Live indie games. So games for the Xbox, games for the phone. Either one can win, and you can also submit both. So one license to Sunburn actually covers you in both places. So if you've got an idea for a Windows Phone 7 game and an Xbox Live indie game, one license to Sunburn is going to do you, and you're going to be able to ship both those games using the Sunburn
You've only got
gaming
6 weeks, so
But you only got
3
6
weeks,
weeks,
a game,
which is the reason you need to buy this, because it's too damn late for you to be fucking around with trying to create your gaming engine. You have waited too long. Go over, plop some money down, and get yourself a license to the Sunburn gaming engine. A couple different tiers. If you're a member of the Xbox Live Indie Games, I think you get a discount on that, on there, so it's $300, I think, 400. We should know this.
I don't know.
I mean, truly, we should know, like, the pricing of, the Sunbird Gaming Engine. But you know what? You can go find out. Go find out what it costs for it. Go check out more on the Sunburn Gaming Engine at synapsegaming.com.
So we're encouraging people to to
All
just
right.
submit something that they do in 6 weeks because looks matter. I don't think we're advertising sunburn. We're advertising false hope and cynicism.
Well, that is kind of what I mean. Like, if you look at Dream Build Play winners, obviously platformers with grass, have a strong advantage, historically speaking. It's not my choice. That's what it is. It is what it is, Dylan.
So, assuming this ends up being like the last dance, as it has been said, like everyone will just breathe a collective sigh of relief after the last Dream Build Play, and we no longer have to make platformers with
interesting that you mentioned this. A story that I've got up here to talk about is X&A, the state of play. So James Johnson, known to many as Mad Ninja, or the guy who made eMuse Plus, one of the few developers, as he admits, makes a living off of Xbox Live Indie games. I don't say it's an excellent living. Probably consists of a lot of ramen and a lot of water, and a lot more ramen and a lot more water, but, has managed to carve out a living on Xbox Live Indie games. Has a good post up on Sergeant Conquer, which he took over running the site now. So Sergeant Conquer hasn't been really running Sergeant Conquer in a while. It's kind of been a stagnant site. People get busy, things, move on and stuff like that. But James has come in, renewed vigor to get it back up. And it's a great site to subscribe to for development focused articles around the X&A community. And James kind of gave a State of the Union address of X&A. And it really boils down to the Microsoft-backed X&A. Yeah, this is the last dance. This is the end of it.
It's a very Dream Build Play from X&A kind of.
Yeah, I mean, even to the point where there may or may not be a Dream Build Play next year that may or may not have X&A in it. So like if there's a Dream Build Play, it could be WinRT.
Yeah.
You may still get one more year out of it just because if you look into cycles, and like when Dream Build Play is done, you probably won't have a whole lot of WinRT phones and stuff up this year. Like that may still be a little bit further out.
And it won't be, and it'll probably be, like Xbox will only be an issue once the next one.
And you're not going to launch an Xbox console this Christmas. It's too late to get that geared up.
Yeah.
So that may start discussion next year on, so you're still looking at like a 2013, so it's a ways away from like maybe it's actually cut off, but key members of the team have left. It's not getting updated. It's not part of their future vision statements and where everything's going. However, there's a lot of open source projects. One I'm really interested in tracking is Monogame.
Yeah,
every day seems to get more interesting and better support, and X&A has a future if the community comes to give it that future. If the community supports it.
Yeah, and like with the Sunburn rumors we discussed last week, it's just crazy that, are we waiting for the...
Yeah, I guess, so she keeps hitting the door and setting off all the toys and... I mean, all that picks up and comes out, so...
And if I'm talking in front of the toy music, it comes off as less authoritative than...
Yeah, definitely.
No, but it's interesting with the Sunburn rumors, with the talk of Monogame, especially since the post last week that we discussed on Monogame was literally, hey, X&A doesn't look like it has much of a future on Metro, so here you go. Yeah, like this is being taken over by open source and literally could be the, multi-platform framework that, as we discussed, back when this was Xbox Indie Game Reviews, even that far back, that's what X&A needs to do to really become competitive.
It would definitely be able to grow in ways that Microsoft never would have allowed it to grow. You know, like having a very strong Mac, having a very strong Linux, you know, iOS ties with the platform. And, you know, Miguel, I talked about this in an article, I linked his tweet, seems to be very behind and supportive of Mono Game and all of that. And so, I kind of like the idea. And if you go to the Mono Game page on Codeplex, they do list out, like, all these different games that have, you know, shipped and things like that. And, Bastion apparently used Mono Game in some fashion to create the Chrome version. So Bastion, an XNA game. Also Fez is an XNA game, which is, it's almost like this bittersweet moment of like, you have these, you know, Bastion and Fez are these serious indie projects, okay? This is a little bit above the level we talk about most of the time at indie. This is, you know, really like deeper games. We're really more at the indie hobby level. And to see that XNA is being used for these projects, and it's, you know, it's working quite well, apparently, that Microsoft is stepping away from it. And it seems like it's really coming into its own right now. Like, it's being used by these major indie studios now. I mean, the reason the guys in Xbox Live Indie Games and XNA cling around to it so long is because we generally like the framework. It's a really good, developer-friendly game framework, and it's pretty damn flexible, and it's pretty easy to get stuff up running quickly in it compared to, you know, C and C++ based frameworks that, and it's more powerful in terms of flexibility than, like, say, a Unity, which is a very constrictive, you know, like,
it's 3D only.
It's 3D only. You're running their engine. You're going to pay to their things. You're going to use their editor, and you're basically going to script objects. This, you still have full control to do whatever you want. And, you know, like talking about James, Man Ninja Skills. I mean, he made a music sequencer with the XNA game framework. So it can easily be applied to things outside of just typical games. In the long run, to be good. Of course, this means, you know, Mono's not going to run on Xbox, right? Because Microsoft's not going to bless that and support that. But interesting on discussion of that is that, oh wait, I got these slightly out of order that I want to talk about them in. Yeah, let's get that one up here. So, off of Develop here, Valve confirms interest in building living room and mobile hardware. So basically, Gabe Newell of Valve, who's basically like, we're not making a Steam box, you know? And then later, you know, like this thing comes out of like how they looked at like hardware specs or something, or talked to supply chain. It's like, no, just because we look at what it would cost doesn't mean we're thinking about building a box or something. And now they're like investigating mobile device technology in living room, is what they're calling it, living room technology, of like some device that would go in the living room. But it's still in this weird like, hey, no! Look, just because we have secured a supply chain and have CAD drawings of what a console mockup would look like and have begun an operating system that in no way means we're going to make a Steam console. We might not be any good at that. So, like, I don't know how long he's going to play that game.
Well, it may be, too, that, you know, there are multiple ways that could play out. That could be anything from a media center PC that is, you know, has some extensions for, you know, Steam, to something that is locked to running Steam. So, you know, it's probably in their best interest not to.
The Steam box. So other rumors that surround this that I queued up that I wanted to get in order was, first of all, like, Gabe came out and said Apple never visited Valve. So there was rumors a week or so ago that Apple had gone to Valve, and then like the whole Steam box and Apple TV of like, wait, it's one and the same. Like, the Apple is going to turn the Apple TV into a console, and it's going to be the Steam box, and they're going to work together. This is going to be, you know, it's like, that's a lot from supposedly one person from Apple going over to Valve. But it's funny in the article on there because Gabe basically started sending emails among all the VPs of like, Did you meet with Tim Cook? No, I didn't meet with Tim. Who met with Tim Cook? And like, no, nobody met with Tim Cook. You know, worst case scenario, somebody did meet with Tim Cook because he's interviewing for a job. You know, he's getting ready to, like, leave Valve and go work for Apple, and now he's trying to cover up, like,
yeah.
no, Tim Cook wasn't here. I'm not, like, talking to him about, you know, and it just kind of blew up. But the other article that came out on Valve and Steam this week was Steam and Source Engine have Linux support underway. Now, okay, so you could take this on its surface, and on its surface, we've seen in Kickstarter and we've seen in the Humble Bundle that Linux actually is a strong selling point. That there's a good developing core of gamers who are demanding the games run on Linux. And prior to that, it's been like, well, it's not financially worth it, so we skip it. But when you get to the indie realm, it's behooving to the indie developer not to support Linux, because if they can support Linux, they can get in the Humble Bundle and, you know, run on any platform. Also, you know, some games frameworks like Source, the Valve Source Engine framework, if it can target Linux, then, you know, it's a broader platform and all of that. And then if you extend to that and like, okay, well, if your Source Engine runs on Linux, and Valve has done like Linux ports in the past of some of their games, then it just makes sense if, like, Humble Bundle always ties in with Steam keys, but you always have to download the Linux version because it's not on Steam, and it's like, oh, maybe now there's a Steam client for Mac, there's a Steam client for Windows, here's a Steam client for Linux that shows the Linux-enabled games, and that they can allow indie developers that are going to support, you know, all three platforms, you know, and just tie in better in the ecosystem and not play platform favorites. But if you were to rumor mine this and look into this, if you were to build a Steam box, would you want to go with a Windows operating system and pay Microsoft a Windows license for every box? Or fork a version of Ubuntu and build your Steam box on top of it?
Seems like you'd want to build on top of Linux, although that does kind of lend itself to the problem of fragmentation, like Android, and to a certain extent even like Amazon Kindle, like where now you have the Amazon App Store and there's certain apps that only work on Kindle, and there's kind of this weird division even within Android. Yeah,
and I think it wouldn't be so bad because, you know, if there's a Steam box, and then you can probably assume, okay, this is the version of OpenGL that it runs. This is the version of shader programming that you can do because this is the card in it. It would still be like a console, so you don't have to worry about every Linux system in a Steam console situation, but on a Linux Steam, you would. And it would be even worse because, like, Linux could mean a whole bunch of crap, and Windows, at least, like, there's a set known quantity of what that means. You may have to install, like, say, the XNA framework.
Yeah.
But you don't have to worry about, like, well, they recompiled their kernel, and that entire thing is disabled on their kernel. Maybe the Linux community will better handle this. Like, I haven't paid attention to the Linux desktop community in about 10 years, so I don't know where it's at as far as the state of... oh, no, it's got its own set of frameworks. It's pretty well solid. People release games for this, and it's done.
Well, my guess is if you're compiling kernels now, then you pretty much accept that this is a possibility.
And that's the other thing. If you're a Linux desktop user, you're used to monkeying with your system and getting under the hood and doing things like recompiling a kernel or custom building drivers.
Maybe if you're in...
But NVIDIA has always had strong Linux support, so if that's there, if you have good solid graphic card drivers, then there's no reason.
But if you're not used to monkeying with stuff, you're probably using a standard.
But it's like a double win for Valve if they put a Steam box together, and gamers love Steam, and they rush out and buy the Steam box, and it becomes powerful, and, you know, it's like, we're a market force now to get on Steam with the Steam box. And then Valve is also selling and licensing the Source Engine, which, guess what, guys? Runs on all the platforms Steam does. You know? That's a nice little, like, side shop business they could have. I mean, and there's certainly, there'd be pressure for like a Unity 3D to ship on Linux as well. So...
Well, and two, the interesting thing is, if they get a Steam client for Linux running now, they kind of have a test market for, like, they get to see what that ecosystem is going to look like, because, while that Steam client is in the works, they can go to, their top, developers and go, hey, can you give us a Linux port of this, if they don't already have one, and... you can start to see what that looks like before the Steam box hits.
So, I highlight all three of these just to basically say that I think Steambox is happening. Whether it happens this year or next, I think that's going to materialize. I think there's just too many rumors in that direction of some combination will materialize. And the interesting thing will be, to me, the most interesting question unanswered is lost leader or charge what the hardware is worth. Does Valve go out and do the typical console, sell a console at a loss and make it up on sales of games? Or does Valve go, no, we don't play that game, and it's a $700 console at launch, knowing that...
I'd have to say it depends on capability.
Like, if you're attracting the PC market to the living room, $700, whatever, man. PC gamers have $3,000 gaming rigs, Like, that's...
Exactly.
I spend $700 on the video card.
But they can be used for other things.
Yeah, but most of them, like, their system is built and spec for the games,
right,
and then the other things get done automatically.
But if you can fire up, some sort of DVR or streaming software, a web browser...
I think that because it's like, well, it's a PC box and it has capability, but at the same time, that's what I hate about the Xbox right now, is it's become like, hey, I'm a media center thing. It's like, I almost don't want that of a Steam box. I almost want it like,
well,
no,
Steam
just run your damn games. Don't pop up with Steam of like, do you want to buy games? Or now you can buy movies from Steam.
Well,
now you can tie in your Netflix account to your Steam box. Now, we're a media server and we'll run HTTPC and...
They can't compete with the PS3 or the Xbox in that area. So I don't mean that they would go that direction, but just that maybe this is an open, like, this is like running Android, where you can go in and you can do all kinds of crazy stuff, outside of Steam.
More like as apps. Like you can install Steam apps.
Well, not just that, more like a computer, where you have the freedom to go in and do more things. Then, yes, it's worth
as long as... But I fear that this is where that ends up. This is where this goes. There's a Steam box, it's successful, and then Valve, starts selling some movies on the side, menu, and then that all of a sudden is making them more revenue, for the movie licensing deals than the games do. And then it's like, although, I didn't queue this up on the news article, but Microsoft's Xbox division lost serious money, last fiscal quarter, which is kind of a shocker. I thought they were, raking it in, but I guess there's been an ebb of just people not renewing Xbox Live accounts. I mean, people really getting to the point where they're like, why do I have this? This is ridiculous. The Netflix interface is shit. The services are all charged extra.
I'm already paying for damn internet.
Yeah, I pay for internet. I pay for Comcast cable. I pay for HBO. Oh, but I can't run HBO Go on my Xbox because somebody didn't suck somebody else's dick right. That's really what happened, And it's been speculated, too, because HBO Go on Comcast cable won't work on Roku still, but HBO Go on Comcast cable will now work on Xbox. And they're wondering if, Microsoft didn't, just out-and-out pay HBO the hush money they wanted or, for that extra feature just so it was on Xbox everywhere and that Microsoft didn't look bad.
Well, whether Microsoft did or didn't, HBO Go just seemed like a very broken idea,
for some reason HBO is not letting go of the cable subscriber model.
Yeah.
And it's like, if HBO Go would Netflix, if HBO would just Netflix it, $8, $9, $10 a month, And HBO just said, look, for $10 a month for the online streaming, which is what you fucking pay for cable anyway. So $10 a month cable, I get all the HBO awesomeness of everything. But if they said, look, if you don't have cable and you just pay $10 a month online, and the only thing you will get from us are our original series and our original movies, because we can't license the movies because we don't have the rights to that, done. I'm in. I'm down. Game of Thrones me. You know, I'll go back and watch all the Sopranos. I like the documentaries. They apparently got one on Game Change with it's a behind the scenes type like HBO documentary, but it's not. It's a movie / documentary on Sarah Palin. So it's like heavily steeped in fact, but portrayed by actors and in a narrative. They did one of those, Too Big to Fail. It's excellent. I love watching the movies. I'll do it. Done. You have my $10 a month. It is worth it. I would pay it in a heartbeat. And I don't think I'm alone. But they cling to the cable subscriber model, and I just think it's a case of old blood in the board. You know, like the boardroom meets, and it's like this. We've always been a cable company. We're always going to be a cable company. Damn these internet.
Hulu has certain things that you can't stream on Xbox or on a device basically, and it is annoying because, you know, especially if I'm doing something on my computer while I'm watching, it's gonna, like, the performance is gonna be crap, you know, at some point, or I risk the performance being crap.
So anyway, let's catch up a bit. What, you've been doing a lot of work. You've been the lead dev for last week or so.
I've done a lot of work, but I've done
well, on the development side, on the programming of Captain Dubstep.
Okay, well, basically we started out with pretty much what you see in the last Dubstep Diaries. You know, we've got some of the time manipulation in, we've got kind of a basic platformer, and I've started in adding the ability to do enemies and platforms and other things that move, which is, like we were talking before the show, has just been really complicated because you go into this as someone who started out as a business developer, and you think in terms of kind of workflow, like very clean steps, very obvious state changes. All that goes out the window when you're dealing with collision detection because everything is happening.
Yeah, so to frame this collision detection conversation, we were discussing, so right now what we have is we have a level class and we have a player class, and the player class is doing all the collision detection at the moment because up until this moment really that was the only one that existed. And I had said from a conversation and email, you know, of we need to move a lot of the information that the player class is involved with into our game state object. Because we're going to have other objects that need this information as well, and I don't want to, like, start making a whole bunch of things know about each other. So I don't want, basically, the music engine, the music class, is going to have to look at the state class to know what to do to the music based on what's happening in the game. And I need to be able to freely iterate on that because I'm not certain how it's going to play and practice what's in my head. So I don't want to tangle up the player class and monster classes and level classes because I keep tweaking the way the music's going to behave. So we need to get this stuff pulled out. And in pulling it out, I suggested, it's like, so what we want to do is, I think what we want to have here is either the game object itself, or, and the game object, I mean the actual game the main game loop, or the level, possibly, be in charge of all collision detection, okay? These are conversations that developers have quite a bit. It's not like there's a great solution to this out there. It all kind of depends on the game, depends on how you're doing everything, and what may work best for you.
And a game doesn't necessarily have to be like business code where everything is, depending on what type of... What
well, that's where I'm getting into this, you know? Because I said, what we're going to have is have the level class take care of, or the game loop, take care of the collision. Because the last thing you want to have is to double loop the collision. All right? So the player has to know if it collided with the monsters. But the monsters also need to know if they collided with each other and the player. So what you don't want to have is a case where the players and the monsters go through the loop each themselves and compare themselves to each other twice because they don't know that the other one already did it.
That actually depends, and this is something that could pop up later, but as I'm going into this, there are certain features that we can build into that engine, like certain, do the monsters have to know about each other? Can they run into each other? How can the player interact with the monster? What
I was suggesting was that we have the level run through to the collision detection and then call methods on the individual objects to say,
right.
You were just hit by the player. You were just hit by another monster. You have hit the wall, You were shot. And then do whatever they need to do so that we can freely add monsters. Again, so what we want to create, this is the business side, is a separation of concerns. This can be done through dependency injection, inversion of control. There are several patterns, base class hierarchies and things like this, interfaces. There are several ways to implement separation of concerns. But the general idea is that the monster class is concerned only with the monster class itself. And it doesn't know about the level. It has no code that knows about the player. And then it just exposes methods that the other things can push buttons on it and say, you just got hit. Now deal with getting hit. But like you said, when you go to collision detection, what you want to have happen is this nice clean world of resolve all collision detection and then tell everybody the outcome. But it doesn't work that way because the player moved left. Well, he collided with the wall, but he also got hit by the monster, right?
Yeah.
But what we have to do is, once we resolve the collision for the wall, we back out his movement because he can't actually move there, so he's stuck on the wall. He may have not collided with the monster yet. The monster may be on the ledge, and he didn't actually run into the monster. So it's almost like every time collision detection results in a collision, you almost have to restart everything and go through everything again because you possibly could have moved. But you don't want to do that because that just reeks of, that's performance issues.
You do. It really depends because there are multiple ways you can do it. The benefit is that usually the update method is running so quickly that all your changes are very, very small. If that ever changes, you're screwed. But that's a benefit, but it also means it's very hard to think of this thing in terms of I could sit down on a piece of graph paper and figure out exactly what's happening in each frame and kind of reverse engineer from there what I need to do. And it's just been really interesting because, for example, creating an enemy that knocks the player back is easy, but creating a movable object that you could jump up on top of and stand and, would push you back gets really complicated.
Especially when you don't want the object you're standing on to know anything about the object standing on it.
Yes.
Because you want to be able to freely add new ones that ideally you didn't even think of. So, I mean, the perfect case is that the designer comes up with an entirely new monster concept, right? Like a monster who has a wind tunnel and blows things back. And it's like you want to be able to drop that into your game without oh shit, that's going to fuck everything up. I'm going to have to go to every monster, there's a player, to level, and now put in the wind tunnel method. Now he has to check to see if he's in a wind tunnel and behave that way. Whereas it'd be much easier just to go okay, well, then I add the wind tunnel in this one spot, and that's always the test. If you can go to one spot and make this change, and you've successfully implemented separation of concerns, and I don't give a damn what your code looks like. If you can go to one spot and implement a global system change, you have correctly done separation of concerns. If you can go to one spot and change your loading of assets from disk, okay, and optimize that, you have correctly done separation of concerns. I don't care if you did that in a static class, a base class, an instant, a game component, does not matter to me. That is just variations on a theme. The thing is, go to one space, add the new, this monster shoots a laser versus this monster shot, a wave beam.
Yeah. And what's interesting is a lot of those decisions you make, there is issues of scaling that come into it. Right now we've got a sprite class that holds the player mask, and the sprite class knows about the player mask, but the actual game objects don't know necessarily which player mask they're using. Or, well, I haven't gotten to that part yet, but it's like there's a lot of these things that, depending on where we put it, it could be more performant, less of an issue of memory, or it could be scalable, more types of enemies. Right now, I'm implementing one enemy class. I've got a bunch of properties that you can set in tiled. I do foresee the time when that no longer works. But the nice thing about that is, the enemy class can hard code a lot of logic that, we don't have to deal with multiple types of classes yet.
Right.
There's always a trade-off, but...
Because, one way to go about it is, and this is more of a business developer's background approach, is to have an enemy base class, and then have your enemies inherit off of that base class. But I think the more we've done game development, the more I've come to the opinion, like, that's really bad, because your enemies end up varying so much. Like, the one or two things they share in common is, like, getting hit.
Yeah.
And that's it. They don't really share anything else in common, because this guy did this thing different and this guy did that different. So that means I can't implement that in the base class. I have to do it.
The reason
this is one of the reasons I was pushing for interfaces rather than base classes, because you can have multiple interfaces on a class, and so you could have an interface for getting hit and an interface for pathfinding, and then the objects can choose to implement, those monsters can implement getting hit differently and pathfinding differently, but the level class, when it's doing collision detection, can test to see, does this class implement I hit or I pathfinding? And if it does, then I'm going to call the methods that then exist, and basically it's like, it's almost, without truly going into an event-based system, it's almost like I'm registering for these events in the system.
Yeah. Now, I don't know, like right now I'm keeping it with one, not a base class, but a single enemy class, just because that opens up the possibility of doing object pooling really easily. Like, so you go into this area, I pull a bunch of enemy objects, I initialize them, I put them back because they're all the same type, but that becomes more complicated once you get multiple types of enemies.
Right, because you end up, so when you do that, like I have set that set where they're not actually classes, they're structs.
Right.
But for some of the different bullets, and when I did the Space Invaders game, for like the different invaders and things like that, and you have a flag or two, you have an enum value that says like, oh, this is that and this is this. But then you have giant switch code start to develop of like, okay, well, I got to switch on the movement because I got to figure out the type. Oh, wait, they got hit. I got to switch on the type again. Oh, they got this again. And then you find when you add a new enemy type, you're going to 18 places to add that switch statement now, right? And you've lost separation of concerns because the end goal is to be able to add a monster and go to one place and be done with it.
It depends. Like right now I don't have anything too crazy, but I think I'm going to wait until I actually hit that to go that route. The other issue I'm running into is there's a lot of code that... There's a lot of logic that feels like it should be in the enemy class that I would have to either put somewhere else or repeat, and I'm kind of like deferring that until I get to because part of the reason I was going to clean up the code was I'd kind of hit a wall on some of the collision detection, and I kept screwing around with it and like moving bits of code different places, and it suddenly kind of like eventually kind of like sculpting something, or you take off bits and pieces here, and eventually it became something actually, I think, decent.
Yeah, that's when
not
I
painfully
started writing that collision detection code.
Yeah.
It actually kind of started out that way, where I just had like put raw pieces in place, and then like I'm cutting things off, and it's like I actually don't need that loop up here anymore. Like when I started, I needed it, but now the way I've refactored this piece, that piece is no longer, and then it starts to look intelligent, really. Like it looks like I know what the hell I'm doing here.
Yes, and you pull in some like stupidly clever stuff, like with the enemy hit detection. I wanted to be able to detect if you were hitting them vertically or horizontally, like which way I need to push you back and whether you're actually riding on top of this object. So it could be used as a platform. And there's a couple things I'm doing, like, well, if the bottom of the player is in the top quarter of the enemy, then it's this. Otherwise, use the X value instead of the Y value. So, I don't know, it's interesting because I've gone back and tried to refactor this code, like completely just comment out, rewrite it, and it never works. Like there's, I don't even think you can do that. Even if you think you get the logic exactly the same.
But there was like some weird edge case that happened, and yeah.
Or you transpose a couple of things and it works completely different. Things that shouldn't even matter, but because you're running so many loops, such small loops so many times a second, make a difference.
They do. And the collision detection routine is almost where you at least isolate that in one place, do all the collision detection in one spot in code, whether that ends up being our level class or our game, wherever. There'll be one file that you'll open up and it'll have a collision detection routine that's going to deal with all of this mess. So it's just there's where you can like see the whole picture, because it's ripe for optimizations, right? It's going to be an area you're doing, like you said, all these loops and checks and pulling textures in and, parsing and all that. Like it's ripe for optimization. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't follow like any clean patterns. Like it's going to end up messy. And for it to be efficient, it almost like demands that it has this messy, ugly feel about it of like, yeah, I'm not object oriented. I'm fucking just procedural spaghetti code.
Yes.
And that's what I'm going to be, and you can't make me anything else. And so the other reason to get it off in a place is like, that's isolated. And if it's not broken, you just don't have to open that file that day and be faced with.
In fact, it's interesting because it is spaghetti code. It's stuff that if you scaled this up to larger loops would just break entirely, but it's not supposed to scale to that level.
But right now, performance-wise, I mean, we're way on the plus side. We've got the time ruler installed, so we can kind of see as we, build and deploy that we're way, we've got a lot. We're using 1/10 of the processing power we have in a frame so far.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of our base mechanics up and going. So, we got a lot to spend in terms of, CPU on enemies and AI and firing and objects and screen and all of that. Before we're gonna, like, come back in and go like, okay, we got to optimize.
I'm finding, though, that looking at the code, like, there's a million different things I could do to get this working generally, but we kind of have to pick and choose, like, which features, are going to be an issue for us and focus on those and let other let certain things just, certain things that we can't get working right, just not use them.
So while you've been doing that, I've been working more on the music. And usually the working on the music process goes, I try to ignore shit that I need to do to come home and just start working on the music. 'Cause I really need to attack that very soon after I get home, because, with everything that's going on, if I don't get started on something by 7:38, it just tired sets in and fatigue sets in, and I can't get myself to go and get into something that's going to require as much creative energy as music composing does. So I've tried to dive in and 5:36, get busy. I just it's like it's ramen or something that takes no time, or I've even a couple nights where I don't even have dinner. I just have a carnation shake, and just like feeding through tubes. It's like it's more important to focus than it is to eat. And get on there. I've been using FL Studio, and I'm at the point where I'm going to buy it. I haven't actually shelled out the $300 to buy it, but I'm going to buy it. And I've googled around a little bit for like coupons and discounts, and they do a 10% referral code, I think, or 15%. It's either like 10 or 15% off referral code from all these sites, so that'll knock it down a little bit.
Like if you get referred, it costs you 10% or 15%
Yes,
less?
it costs me 10% less or something. So like, that's like the affiliate program. And I don't know what they kick back to the people referring it.
Yeah.
And that may just apply to the edition I'm looking at, which is the signature edition. Because so you can buy like a basic, which will let you make beats on the computer. And I think many indie game developers could be fine on like this, whatever this is, $99 basic edition. When you get into the $199 edition, there's 4 editions, so I'm leaving one out, okay? Maybe it's a $50, then it goes $99 or something. That low end one could work for a lot of people. But then the next tier up allows you to record audio to use back. Now, I don't think we need this in our game, that I'm going to be recording any audio or using any custom audio samples at this stage. I would like to in the future, but not at this stage. But because I have my guitar and my instruments and I have a keyboard and all that, like being able to plug in and record that makes me feel better about the purchase. I'm like, yes, I can use this for any music stuff. This will be my music tool. It's been
Even
many,
if you're not doing dubstep.
Yeah, well, it's been many years since I've had a music tool. I used to write music. I had this music software, I can't remember the name of it, and it was something plain. It was like Music Studio or something that I had, and it was one of the first tools to combine MIDI and wave. So like in the same song, you could write your MIDI notes on your tracks, and then you had 1 or 2 wave tracks that you could put a wave file on that would actually play that wave file. And, you know, I used to do little dance hall style mix-ups. Like I would take like CDs that had soundtracks that had like audio clips from movies on it, like Reservoir Dogs has a lot of like great dialogue on it, and like find a little word, like little phrase, like let's get a taco, and then just like loop that in my song, you know, and play around with that. And I had some fun with that. It's been a while since I've gotten back into that. And technology has evolved a lot on the way that we do that, because when it started out, it was very similar to the way music composition happened before computers. Just, here's a staff, here's the notes, write it all out. And now it's really kind of come into a more computer-style composition mode, or at least FL Studio is. So FL Studio, I can compose the music while the music's playing. It's very malleable. I can get it up and like I got my drum beat going, and then I can play on my keyboard like, you know what, I like this. What I'm playing right now with this drum beat, this pattern, save that, keep that. Okay, now I'm gonna snare. Like, can I get a little snare? No, forget the snare. I don't want the snare. You know, and it's just like, you don't stop the music. The music keeps going, the beat keeps going, and you add and bring things off. And unless you just want to stop, I mean, it's got to be as annoying as fuck to listen to me down here, because it's like the same loop over and over and over again while I'm just screwing with like this little thing over here of whether I like it better or not.
I played French horn.
But I mean, to hear like me when I'm like editing the sound, and it's just like the same 2-bar loop. Like, it's a real tight loop that I've been working with. So when you step up, you get to record, and then you step up above that, you get some plugins that they ship with. And then if you step up to the Pro, you get a whole mess of plugins. And I think I'm pretty much using a lot of the Pro plugins. And some of the plugins are like simulating guitar stomp boxes. So you plug in a guitar and you load this one up, and then I can actually set, they look a lot like the actual Boss stomp pedals. I don't know if they're actually licensed effects, but that's what they look like. They have the knobs and everything that these pedals would have. So knowing from, you know, my guitar days of like, yes, I want this going into that, going into this pedal, I can set that up. There might be ways for me to create that sound in other plugins that aren't as user-friendly to me, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think I want the $299 edition, just give me all the tools and the plugins. Plus, there's a lot of plugins for sound creation. So the two I've been using, one is 0C30. It's a weird name, but it's an oscillator. So it takes, you know, like up to 3 waveforms that combine. So you can basically, you know, like I got a sine wave, or I got a square wave, or I got the combination of sine and square wave, like mathematically combine those. And you can do a whole bunch of mathematical stuff to it to manipulate that wave, including linking it to the beat. So the dubstep bass, the wub 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 bass that I've been using, I'm not actually creating by remixing and dropping the speed on the bass. I've actually programmed the oscillator to oscillate and resonate at the lower frequencies and cut in and out like, you know, the bass would cut in and out, and just basically simulate that sound. You know, it's not authentic remix dubstep, but it gets me my sound, and it's much more easier for me to just click and drag and go like, I want that note here. I've also used a lot of their, I think it's called Stylus is the other plugin. And this one is another sound synthesized generator, but much, much more depth and complex. And it just has a couple hundred presets that range from like, I need a trumpet, a French horn, electric guitar, warm pad. So like all those Casio keyboard pre-effects that you used to have, like they're all built in into this one. So I've kind of gravitated toward these two to kind of just fill in. Like, I know I need a piano. I know I need warm pads here. Good. This sounds like the warm pads that I want, you know. And then, you know, like it has all these sliders and effects, and I can slightly, it's like, I want a little bit more edge to the pads than this, or I want a little bit more bass amplified. Then it has a nice, so I define the instruments, and then I can map instruments to tracks, like a multi-track recording solution, but each one of these tracks can have its own independent effect loop. So I can take the sine-generated wobble bass, which has a very computerish tone, and I can run it through the distortion pedals of the guitar simulator, run it through a bass boost, and now I come out with a very dubsteppy sounding wobble bass sound. Again, like that's gotta be annoying as fuck for me to listen to hours of the computer just going wub 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 wub. You know, like I'm screwing around just trying to find that sweet spot of bass.
I feel it more than I see it, but Jasmine has started saying wub 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 randomly.
Because I mean, it goes on for like I'll be screwing with the bass for 15 minutes, 20 minutes before I get happy with the sound.
We can just loop one thing and tweak things.
Yeah, I'm not even doing that. Like, I'm playing a C. Just hold the C note down and just change that.
Okay.
And yeah, just like play with different effects until I get to a point where I like the sound. So, I've messed with a bunch of free tools. Like I messed with that Milky Tracker a while back and things like that to see what else I could do. And I think FL Studio is worth the money. Also, because I have musical interests outside of, like I'm a big fan of Weird Al, and like I'll listen to music and I'll just start writing parody lyrics in my head of like a nerd type, like this would be hilarious as, you know, a programmer, like, spoofing off, some song or something like that. Like, I'd like to do that. And it's like, yeah, I could really easily set up sequence, find out what the notes are, the chords, play the guitar part, record that. The other thing I love is that it has an audition mode. So you can take your actual guitar, your physical line instrument, or the keyboard, have it go to MIDI instead of going to waveform, so you can capture that data, but the guitar would be audio, of course. Have that go in. But basically, so you got like the pattern. Like, here's the chorus. Okay? And I'm going to play the guitar piece behind the chorus. And as soon as it gets done, it loops right back into the chorus again. And you just take two. And it just keeps looping. It just keeps looping the chorus, and you just keep playing the chorus over and over again. And it's like the 18th time you feel like, this is good. I like that last one. Then you can go back in, and you can listen to all 18 takes. They're all individuals, and say, number 17 was my best. Take that one as the official and then loop it through the chorus, so like if you're not like me, I'm not professionally grade, like I just can't be a studio guitarist and come in and play it.
Well, like,
I can get it right a few times, but for me to nail it right every time throughout the entire song, it's not going to fucking happen. And then you get into the case where you're trying to like piece together and make it line up. Like, it basically makes that process easy. So, I like that, as well. And, the whole idea of like, yeah, I could do some of these parodies that are in my head, and have some fun like that. Like, I'm the entertainer, the entertainer, Billy Joel.
Joel.
Like, I've thought of like, I'm the conference speaker. You know, like you can, like so many things like fit in there of like, you know, just like, because that whole song is just about like where you, take the shit that goes along with your job, you know, like whatever.
Yeah.
I get up here to do my thing, but to do my thing, there's all this hell.
I was gonna say
and-
we really work with the conference speaker part.
Yeah, it's like I like getting up and interacting with people, but there's all this travel and paying for my own hotel rooms and, you know, like, I don't have any vacation left, you know, at my company because I've done all the speaking, and it's like, that's not seen at all. And, you know, I talked with another speaker about that. I'm like, yeah, that's hilarious. That's exactly, you know, what it is. But I mean, the entertainer's upbeat. Like Billy Joel's upbeat about like, I would still do this. This is what I do, you know? And, also because there's a part about having, you know, another long-haired hippie,
It's been a while since I've heard it. So
Oh,
I don't
okay,
remember
yeah.
that part, but yeah, I mean,
yeah, so basically he's like, you know, you go in and, or no, sorry, that's not the entertainer. That's, Turn the Page. That's Bob Seger.
I was gonna say that's like,
But it's the same, Turn the Page is the same
Yeah,
thing as the
yeah.
entertainer.
No.
It's about him performing on the road, you know, all that, but yeah. You know, that's where you come into the diner, strung out from the cold, and, you know, it's just, you know, it's another damn, you know, the same old joke, is that a lady or a man, you know, because they're all rednecks and just have long hair, you know, so. Anyway,
I mean,
so I've been working on that. I put on Captain Dubstep.net. I put on the website. I'm calling them sketches because they really are just that. I'm really just like, okay, here's a loop for the drums. Here's a loop for the warm pads. Here's a loop for the melody line. Here's a loop for this. This is not an arranged piece. This is the components, and I'm just trying to hear the components together and apart to like go in and start to really. Because for me, like, we talked about this before the show started, I was playing you some dubstep that, if I could license, I would. And I'm like, you know, it's like, yeah, it's got the rhythm and it's got this piece of it, and here's what's nice. Then it hits this drop and it fucking goes insane and it's just cut and chop and all of this. And it's like, I want all of that insanity in the game. That's the vision that's in my head. I don't know if we're going to have that for Dream Build Play.
well, it's something you can't teach yourself in 10 weeks, like how to compose that.
Yeah, it's...
But, you know,
And also, there's a lot of tool learning. So I've kind of mastered Fruity Loops, FL Studio. I still call it still Fruity Loops to me. It's still the free software disk that comes to your sound card to me. But I've mastered sort of its pattern tool so that I can create patterns and then reuse patterns and then arrange patterns as blocks on a chart, which is really helpful for this kind of music. You know, this really works out well. And what I haven't mastered is like, now I want to seriously like remix these patterns, and I really need to pull more tutorials on the web and just see how people are using FL Studio to do these kind of remixes and stuff on the web. Like how do they get all that together? Are they actually making custom patterns of the really chopped up version, or are they applying effects in the pattern building tool to actually silence and bring up and remix and do all of that? So that's where I've been at. On top of that, I've been taking breaks with Mass Effect. I don't know if you see me on Xbox lately.
no, I've seen you. I saw you tweet about that the other day.
Well, yeah, so the other night, it's not that Xbox Live went down. It's that Xbox Live can't fucking handle two consoles in the same house, behind the same router, without at some point kicking one off. And actually, this has nothing to do with Netflix. We used to think it was like Netflix signaled. No, I can get kicked off and she can get kicked off and we're not even in Netflix. Because I'm just trying to load that. And I bought Mass Effect 2 when it came out, brand new, and entered my code to get the useless Zuri dude that didn't do shit, and then like the crash site mission where you go back to the crash site of the original Normandy,
Yeah.
and you know, just collect some dog tags and shit. And that's in my save file that I completed those missions. And then because it couldn't connect to Xbox Live, because Xbox Live was like, fuck you, you're not connecting to Live. I'm like, I don't give a shit, I'm playing my single-player Mass Effect game. The Cerebrus network, the EA bullshit, the EA Online Pass crap that they put in the game, goes, oh, you're not on Live, so I can't connect to EA, and your save game has Cerberus content, so you can't load your save game.
That's just
Like, it's my fucking, like, and what I've been doing is I bought all of the, Mass Effect 2 DLC. I ended up playing all of it. I was reading about it, and it's like, which one should I play, which one should I skip? Because there was a lot of DLC, for it. But then I found out that a good chunk of some of it that people were talking about came from the Cerberus network. Like, there was more free content put out for people who bought the original game, had the EA Pass hooked up. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Those missions weren't the best. The better missions obviously were paid. And I think it would be nice if they took one or two more and made them pass. That would make me feel better about having the pass. But, it wasn't a pass like Call of Duty where you have to pay extra. This was just, if you buy the game new, you get the pass. Okay? This was just don't buy it used pass. So, that wasn't overall bad. So then I realized, like, oh, okay, well, there's actually 4 I haven't played. 2 were just excellent beyond, like, everybody's, like, Overlord, not Overlord, Lair of the Shadow Broker, and, you played Mass Effect 2, right?
I played a little bit of 1.
A little bit of 1? So you never even finished 1?
No. I got stuck on side quests, and I was kind of like, eh.
And yet you're Skyrimming, like...
It's a different... It's a different thing. I'm not saying that Mass Effect
like Skyrim,
is boring. It's
right,
just,
Skyrim doesn't even have, like, a main quest, right? It's just side quests. It's just all side quests.
But it has main, it just has a shit ton of side quests.
Yeah, and it doesn't force you to... In general, it doesn't force you to stay on the main quest.
Like 80% side quests.
Yeah.
So, I loaded back up that, and it's like, so Lair of the Shadow Broker fills in some really key what happened to a main character in 1, because she's no longer with your crew, but she's still alive, and also the Shadow Broker. You get to find out who he actually is, and he's in Mass Effect 1 and 2 as being like this guy who just deals in information and has dirt on everyone and everything. And so you finally, like, uncover who this mysterious guy is and all of that. So it's just great story, backstory. You're catching up with your crewmate and what went on, and, a spoiler alert, you die between 1 and 2. And they regenerate your body. So it's like 2 years later when your regenerated body is. And the shadow, so the shadow...
You haven't played it by now.
Well, if you haven't played it by now, but it's like the start of... It's like the opening scene from Mass Effect 2 is you dying. And you're sent on one of these, like, missions that you can't win. Right? It's real dramatic. It's awesome. I really think you should go back and play it and stick to the main quest if you need to get through it, because the storyline, just going back and playing the DLC, I'm just immersed back into how much I love the Mass Effect story and the universe, and how well BioWare has really tailored it to my actions. Like, it's constantly referenced and brought up in dialogue and all of that, like, just little thing in, like, the DLC where there's a hostage situation, and they've got the hostage and they're holding a gun to their head, and, it's like, I'll shoot, if you come here type setup, and you're basically like, I'm the fucking commander who let the entire race over here die? Do you honestly think I give a fuck about one person? Like, understand who you're dealing with. And I didn't get that dialogue in one of my other Shepard playthroughs because he didn't choose that option. He refers, and it's like, the fact that I keep coming back and touching that, I just love it. And going back, playing the DLC, and I ended up playing, like, all 4. But the first was the Lair of the Shadow Broker. That fills in a lot of backstory. The last is the Arrival, which takes you from the end of Mass Effect 2 to the beginning of Mass Effect 3. So basically, Mass Effect 3 opens with, and I have not checked or looked into any, I'm still in my Mass Effect 3 blackout, exactly how it opens, but I do know it opens with another, like, shocker of, like, you're dead. Like, holy crap, like, here's the, major, like, instead of having a cliffhanger at the end, they start with a cliffhanger of, like, oh my god, what's going on? And, they basically just set up how that's going to happen. So now I have like a vague idea of like, oh, okay, I kind of see what's going to happen now based on how this mission turned out. And at that point, like nostalgia high, like I go back and I play the other 2 DLC packs. I went ahead and ended up buying all 4 of the DLC packs, and they were okay. The Overlord and there's another one that you get another character for your crew. I'll say the character that you get for your crew was kind of the weakest to me on story, because when you get a crew member late in the game, just by sheer how it has to be implemented, she can't really integrate with the rest of the crew members. Like, the rest of the crew members can't talk to her. They're not going to bring back, reshoot all the dialogue, re-record all the voice actors. They're not going to do that. So, it's isolated from the main crew, and it really sticks out. In the Mass Effect universe, where everybody talks about everybody knows, and there's this big cohesive thing, when you have this DLC character who obviously doesn't, then that's noticeable. So her storyline and all that to me didn't grab that, but the other ones did. There's a whole interesting storyline where there's a guy and his autistic brother, a scientist and autistic brother, who his brother can begin to talk to some of the machine races. There are races that are machines,
Right.
And he basically hooks him up to the machines to communicate with them, and that goes bad, of course. And that's kind of an interesting, it was kind of a good story. So a lot of good sci-fi type moral questions. You know how good sci-fi always comes back to moral questions. So I'm set for the disappointment that is Mass Effect 3. Like,
Wow.
There's no way I can go into Mass Effect 3 believing I am not going to be disappointed by the end of it. After finishing the Hunger Games and reading the 3rd book of the Hunger Games and being totally pissed off by the ending of that, and it totally destroying the entire series for me.
I actually started reading the 1st book. Don't tell me that.
Oh, no. Oh, well, it's too late. You're in.
It's too late.
You're committed. You're in. And no, it's totally a Cylon Jesus. It is totally...
Well...
It is totally a moment of, like, this ending is so epically bad shit. I will never remember how much I love the rest of it.
When you say Cylon Jesus, you mean just the effect of one bad thing spoils everything? Okay,
one bad thing spoils everything
Deus
else.
Ex Machina just because. Because I was going to say... Like,
No.
Arguably, there are other Deus Ex Machinas that happen all through the series,
No.
and you just have to deal with it. It's young adult
It's not
literature.
an anime Deus Machina, or because that's the will of the earth. What the fuck?
I don't even mean that.
You know?
Like, not
It's not that. It's not that, like, we give a shitty explanation. It's like a shitty action ending to wrap up, like, okay, here's all these characters, and this are the final decisions of who they are and what they do. And it makes no fucking sense from the rest of the entire series. It's like somebody else came in and wrote the ending, who didn't see any of the other parts.
But let me guess.
It is Cylon Jesus. That's what Cylon Jesus means.
It forces a resolution, as opposed to...
yes, it does end.
It does force a... Because I was going to say, the alternative is...
You're not going to get a book 4.
Book 4, like, you pick a choice that would lead to the possibility of... Because if
your only
fans want
choice...
it's going to
Your only choice is a Caprica. We have to go prehistory.
Okay.
Because, you can't really... You could, it just wouldn't work at all. Like, it's not... I don't know how far into the first one you are in.
I'm almost done. Like,
You're almost done.
To the 3rd part. I just started
the
3rd part last night.
The game, the books all even follow the pattern of build-up game action. Whether or not there's actually a game, it's all...
Right.
Getting ready, fighting the game, and I think she does action well. I mean, I really think, like, those books, like, granted, I read the first one not realizing it was young adult, but I just going like, man, she's very simplistic in her writing.
Yes.
But it works really well. Like, I'm not taking anything from it. And then I found, well, that kind of explains it. But I don't think I've ever read action written better than Suzanne Collins writes in The Hunger Games. I mean, for actual, like, this is the battle sequence, things are going fast paced. Like, it's actually freaking page turning, versus like a Robert Jordan of like, let's stop and explain the historical significance of this rift of dirt in the middle of the battlefield 200 years ago.
She's moving at kind of a rapid clip. I'm actually, like, I started reading it because I liked the movie, and I liked, and I know this is like heresy to everyone who likes, books and movies.
We've started some chat here, and Sarkowski is basically saying, like, you need 2 seasons. Like, if you go more than 2 seasons, you're probably going to fuck it up.
Yes, that is always true.
Josh Whedon is best when his shit's canceled.
Yes, the reason
Firefly and Dollhouse are excellent because they got canceled. They couldn't.
I hate to say that, but yes.
Now, the one solid exception to this three,
we would have a very special episode that takes the entire plot of Serenity, compresses it into like one episode.
Yeah, and then it would be the musical because he just felt like a musical.
No,
come on, he's done that so many times.
Firefly is the only... Okay, Firefly and Dr. Horrible are the only Joss Whedon shows I've watched.
You haven't watched Buffy?
No, because there are 6 seasons of it. I don't want to...
You can stop...
I can't make that commitment.
You can stop Buffy at season 3.
It's still a pretty big...
No, season 3 ends high school and 4 they go to college. Okay. So you can literally walk away in that moment. There's also a story arc.
No, I can't.
There's a story arc that starts in 1 and ends in 3 that... You can feel content.
I started watching Eureka, and I finished the 4th season on Netflix, and I'm kind of like, this is jumping the shark. I shouldn't be watching this, but it's there.
Sarah Connor Chronicles, that was mentioned in chat. That's another one. Excellent because it was canceled. I don't know that it would have been able to keep going. I'm pissed off that it was canceled, but I don't know that I would have been not, like, just shut it down.
It doesn't matter why. Like, it doesn't matter the complex reasoning behind, well, what if it wasn't canceled? Just outrage over the fact
the exception to the rule, Breaking Bad gets better every fucking season.
Because I'm assuming they're going somewhere. They can't introduce a new story arc.
Yeah, but they're into 4 seasons.
Well, yeah, but I mean...
And I mean, they've gone 4 seasons.
Shit goes bad and it gets worse.
Yeah, it breaks bad every episode.
There's no reset button.
No, so they mentioned Weeds. And Weeds doesn't manage to keep it up. Like, Weeds is worth watching for a couple seasons, but then it gets off. And what happens in Weeds is they hit the reset button. Yeah. So, like, all this shit happens, and then it all resolves by the end of the season, and they can just kind of start fresh. And it's like, if you were selling drugs and fucking with the drug mafia, you can't just end that. Like, they're gonna continue to come after you. And continue to come after you. And up there, that's what drug lords do. You just can't, like, get back to 0, Right. But that's what Weeds does. Like, they write their way back to 0, and then there's no real consequence developing. Breaking Bad never fucking does that. It gets worse every episode. I have to remind Cicely, like, sometimes you're watching it, and she's like, oh my god, it's like this, and I'm like, it's Breaking Bad, not recovery, not getting better, it's Breaking Bad. Like, he's got to make the bad choice here. Like, as much as you want him to not make that choice, as much as you want him, like, trust him in that moment. Just, please, don't, like, make another choice based on lies and mistrust. Like, just trust that he knows what he's doing. Oh, you're not. Oh, fuck. Okay. That just, like, there was a moment where you guys could have realized you were on the same side and you were, like, in it. But now, fuck, that's gone.
There is a problem with that.
I cannot.
Because if you go too far in that direction, you get a show like True Blood, where it's horrible people theater. Horrible people doing horrible things, getting more horrible, not realizing how absolutely horrible they are, but pissed off and sad.
And it hasn't gotten there. There's no jump the shark at Breaking Bad yet. So I would encourage you, anybody listening.
Is the same way. It's just
I would encourage anybody listening to watch Breaking Bad, because this 5th season, they have announced final season. We are wrapping it up, and we're gonna blow shit up. Shit's gonna blow up. It's blow up emotionally, blow up physically. Like, it's over.
Both at the same time.
Like, again, like I've said this several times.
Bring me in for the most gruesome moments.
Oh yeah, just so I could replay them too. I've said this several times. I hope, my wish is for the final episode of Breaking Bad to, like, have, like, get everybody in the room, and he just, like, suicide bombs everyone and takes them all out. Everyone's dead, from the kids to the adults to the drug lords to the cop. All of them. All are fucking dead. Cut to black. Adele, Rolling in the Deep, starts playing. Because he's got that great, you know, we could have had it all, you know, and all that. That just starts playing. Credits roll. We're done. That's it.
I don't think I've ever heard that song.
Really?
Here's the funny thing. There's a bluegrass band called Cadillac Sky. They opened for Mumford and Sons on a tour a couple of years ago, and that's how I know about them. They have a album called Letters from the Deep, and I just like.
That's where you go to?
Oh yeah, that I know what that is. No, I don't. And that's why I've never bothered to listen to it.
Okay, let's get back on topic.
That was story. It's
that was story time.
vaguely related. No, it's about the development.
Here, this is interesting. The U.S. retailer, which I don't actually know them. They're not one EK Games. Are they familiar to you? I've never seen an EK Games. But they also, like a GameStop, do used game sales. And they have promised that, hey, we'll give 10% of used game sales back to publishers. Only if publishers don't put new-only codes in the game. If you do that, you're getting no money from us.
That's interesting, but something feels weird. Like, that feels like a donation type of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it does seem like it's a good gesture.
But you're not really, like...
I don't know if it's going to go anywhere.
You're feeding the beast at that point. Like, I'm not sure... It'll
be interesting to see if there's a reaction to that. Now, it's not GameStop, so a reaction I would hope to see is like GameStop also say...
Yeah.
Because GameStop has worked with publishers in the past where they put in the unlock codes for the new content with the used games. And it's like, then at that point, what the fuck are you doing? You know, it's like, the whole point of the code was to not have people buy it used, but if you're going to put the code back in when it's used, then just put the content on disc. Well,
no, but if you... Obviously, they have to have a deal worked out with publishers, I guess.
Right.
At that point, it becomes who's willing to play games with the publishers, and
So, GameStop, since they went down that road, they may be willing to go down this route, and if it could stop the practice of this, like, hey, if you have the game new, you get to play these codes. Because here's the problem I began to wonder the other night. Formerly, I always understood it that if I bought content on my Xbox, anyone who plays on the Xbox from which it was purchased can play all purchased content. But the other night, when I could not play Mass Effect 2 because I could not log my character into Xbox Live and the Cerberus network couldn't verify, can Sicily now play all the content of Mass Effect 2?
Well, what if you're logged in on the same console?
Without, like, logging me in, but then actually playing under her account.
I don't know, that
gets so lame. Because I'd like to call it my brother, because I know he played all of 1 and all of 2, and just tell him, it's like, hey, I bought all the DLC, so if you want to copy your save game to your thumb drive and bring it on over and play the DLC, like, you can play each one night. Like, he only played, like, one playthrough. He wasn't, like, obsessed like me, where I had to play each DLC pack 2 or 3 times because I have multiple playthroughs to carry through.
Achievements.
Well, not just even achievements.
He's got his Dick character, he's got his Jane character, and he had a...
My shepherds are named Dick and Jane, yes.
How do you play them differently?
Well, okay, so I started out with John Shepard. And John Shepard was the first playthrough Shepard guy. I'll do whatever I feel like I should do. I'm not going to try to play to one side. And then after I played through, I'm like, I want to be an asshole. So I made Dick Shepard, because Dick Shepard's a dick. And he chose the horrible action in all choices, right?
I hate you all!
And then I made, after that, I was like, well, I never played through as a female, and I found out there was, like, entire content just for the female Shepherd, and so I played that, and I was like, holy crap, it is worth playing through as a female, because there are dialogue options that are not available to the male, things react differently, different love interest lines open up and all of that, so I'm like, I want to play through as a female as well, and then she kind of gravitated toward making all the good choices, because I got through one where it was kind of muddled. So then I got to points where I could not actually make a choice because I did not have enough Paragon or Renegade points. I was not enough aligned good or evil, and so I didn't have any of those choices available to me. And then, then I had the evil version available, and then I had the good version available. It's not really evil, it's more of rough Renegade Han Solo, or are you standing upright guy. You know what I mean?
But it's really interesting because I wish I'd done that with Skyrim now, because I started achievement whoring halfway through my first character, and up to I'd passed up some of the achievements already because of the decisions I'd made, but like I was playing the good character, and then I started like, let's join the Assassin's Guild, let's join the Thieves Guild, and it was like, man, that's totally changed the whole tone of the game. Not whether it affected anything or not, it's just the tone of the
the tone meaning you can do both, or the tone meaning like...
I think, like...
Because to me, that destroys the illusion of there's a consequence for your choice.
Well...
And that's what I love about Mass Effect, is that there's a consequence for your choice.
In theory, you can do both, because people don't necessarily know you're a member of one or the other, I don't think. Or most people don't. I think for me, it is the tone of the world. Like, you see the dark, seedy underbelly, and I don't really want to do that with the good character. Like, I still want to, you know...
Yeah. So, when I went to Mass Effect 2, I think I loaded up John, but then, I ended up playing through, my first main playthrough with Dick Shepherd, and the funny thing is he didn't end up being Solid Dick. He kind of ended up being really overpowered in both directions. Because it's been a lot of time almost power leveling and you know, doing a lot of the extra stuff in the sides to really boost a lot of him in that game. And then what I played through as Jane, she dead peg all the way to the Paragon side, all the way to the good side. But I knew mostly what would need to be done to actually progress and get these different things unlocked. So in Mass Effect 1, you have a story. And it's really do the side quest and execute the story, and along the way you get to make some big decisions about a planet or a race or what should happen to someone. And you kind of get some follow-up, and then you make some big decisions at the end. In Mass Effect 2, you're really putting together a crew for Mass Effect 3. So you're basically putting together a crew, and then you have a massive battle. But you need to win the loyalty of the crew. So you're doing things to win their loyalty, and then once you get them to a certain point where they feel trusting you, then they give you their loyalty mission, which is a special mission tailored that has to be played with that crew member.
Kind of like with the Dragon Age.
Yes. And then after that, you've unlocked bonus level and all of that. It's critical at the end to have the loyalty of all the crew members, or they don't survive. They can actually not survive even when you have the loyalty, because I went in and I did some things differently with Jane, just to do them differently from what I did with Dick.
Yeah.
And people died, and I didn't have
as a result of choices or as a result of gameplay?
As a result of choices.
Okay.
And not they all had loyalty, but just on who I had do what, and who I put on the team and all of that, like, permanently dead. Gone from my timeline now. And that fucking sucks, man. That really sucks ass going into Mass Effect 3 knowing they're dead. But I didn't have a save prior to making those decisions. Like, the save that I had grabbed was right at the start of the beginning of the final mission, which is right before the choices that would have led to them living or dying. So it's like, I can't save them without replaying Jane all over again, and I'm not going to go that far back. And then almost then I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to suck it up and roll with it, and I've got to play through where everybody lived, and I've got to play through where 2 people died. And I've read you can get a playthrough where just you live. Killed everyone.
Wow. I don't even know how that would play out. I guess
I don't know how they handle that going forward or something, but...
I hear a bunch of stand-ins.
I would guess. I would guess you would get a bunch of stand-ins or something like that. But then it's like, you don't have the continuity. I mean, the people that I gravitated toward in 2 were the people that I had dealt a lot with in 1. Like, I really wanted them, you know, on missions with me a lot more than some of the 2 characters, although some of the 2 characters grew on me.
In a sense, it's kind of like I was saying with Skyrim, like, you've got this sort of playset, like this, you know, this big open world, and this, in their case, or in Mass Effect's case, like, storyline-wise and character-wise, and you don't necessarily experience all of it or all of it at once, but you kind of shape it and you just roll with it, and that's your experience, not the entire breadth of the content, but the way you personally approach it. you make your own.
Yeah. I'm going to hit this news story I read on Gama Sutra about the Sony Yaros. I don't know how you would say this. Yaros?
Don't either, but I remember reading about this.
I don't remember the device itself. Never heard of it, but apparently 15 years ago Sony made I think they initially launched around $1,000 but got down to about $500. A PlayStation that you could connect to the computer and develop PlayStation titles for, in kind of this Xbox Live indie games fashion. You know, it's like basically these systems only ran, the games written for these systems.
Right.
But one of the game magazines used to put on their demo disc, these titles. And Time Slip. Do you remember Time Slip from Xbox Live Indie Games?
Yes.
It's a little snail. That was a Yarozy game, however you want to say this, that shipped on a disc, and you know it's kind of one of those, and later ported that there's a developer, and it's kind of interesting. The article kind of follows through of like these developers who have now moved on to other places. Of like it created a really tight knit, interesting community, and really how Xbox Live Indie Games became that community today. Of like you're not making money off the service. That's not going to even a real possibility, right. But it's the young developers who put their dues in on this system and find a tight-knit community of other people, making games for a console that then grow up into, successful games and all that. It's a really interesting article.
I saw a couple articles about this, I guess linking to this article. Did they say what like platform and language that this was using? Or not platform?
I don't know. It did say it was the PlayStation development kit, though modified.
So I was going to say, if it was like C++, that would be...
It possibly was like a C or C++. What it sounded to me was like it was the PlayStation dev kit. And to me, that would probably be a pretty native kit. They just modified the kit, probably equivalent to like XNA can't do achievements. Right. So there's probably certain things that it couldn't do so that it wouldn't be an option for a AAA studio, that they would still have to license the kits, but they could encourage, this. But it was out of like a small division. The UK and the Japanese divisions really didn't communicate with each other, but they sometimes got each other's games and were really impressed. But the language barrier plus the division wall didn't go on that. So it's a really interesting. It'll be in show notes. It's a good article to read on that. And I had no idea that Sony did this. And it's like, do more of this stuff, man. This is just in your what the fuck file. They're going to make NBA Baller Beats for Kinect. So this is a game that will require you to dribble a ball to play. Like Kinect using combination motion and sound sensors.
Dribble and shoot?
No,
pass?
you dribble to the beat.
Oh. So very limited Dance Central.
It sounds like an amazingly shit idea to me. It just, like, all around. Like,
okay,
do you know how damaging basketballs are in a house?
Yes.
Yes, like,
do.
those bouncing into an entertainment system,
those bouncing into
something's going to lose, and it's not going to be the basketball.
Fake bounce, or do you actually have to have a real?
You actually have to bounce. Also, you're probably on carpet. That doesn't work well.
So you'd have to bounce harder. And yeah,
are they going to sell Are they going to be like the Wii and give you protective covers for your basketball?
There will be no condom for this basketball.
I'm not even sure that would help at that point because it's a basketball. Like it's going so fast that.
Last news article before we hit Kickstarter here. Is another Valve article, and apparently the Valve employee manual leaked. Did you read any of this?
I saw a little bit of it. I skimmed through it.
So apparently in the manual was a section about picking your own projects or working on your own projects. Do whatever you want. I would love to hear from actual Valve employees if it's actually working that way. Because it's kind of like the whole, like, Google, like, 20% time, like, 20% of the time, do whatever the hell you want. You hear from people who actually work at Google, actually leave, like, that is bullshit, man. That's not happening. If you want promotions, if you want in on the bonus, the way all the structures are worked, the worst thing you can do is like, yeah, some of us, you might create a Google Reader in your 20% time, and it becomes successful, but
some people,
the way that they do in the company is like they get you to work on the projects they need you to work on. So basically, like, yeah, you can work on your own thing at half your current salary, or you can make double your salary and bonuses by working on this Gmail project piece that we want you working on.
Well, and that's beneficial. I mean, it's great to give employees some control, but overall there has to be some sort of direction for it to get anywhere. The interesting thing is it's kind of like the idea of like an economy. You know, there are certain rules, and if those rules get too strict or those rules don't work, you start getting this black market over here.
Right.
And it, like the black market exists. Does it work with social pressure? What is the dark side?
It also might explain why Half-Life 3 is taking forever. Because it's like
nobody
wants to like touch that. Like expectations are too far gone on this project now.
And I'm not saying like the thing is like it obviously works for them, and whatever they've done, they've worked a way out, and I'm sure it's better than the alternative.
Now, Virtual Shackles had a great comic on this, where like in Pain 1, they're like, look at Valve, they just release awesome games, and they do whatever they want, whenever they want, so we should run the same way, and they're like demanding their boss, and their boss is like, you know what, yeah, okay, we'll do it the Valve way, we'll try it, and then like the third panel is out of business. Because to me, that's what it seems like. If you had this truly anarchic, do whatever you want, self-forming teams...
Valve, especially in terms of, like you say, it's taking them a while to get Half-Life 3 out or whatever. I imagine they're kind of like Blizzard, where they've got a diverse portfolio of different games that have all done really well. They have a little more leeway to...
They have leeway, but it doesn't seem like... I think allowing people to change the teams they want to work on is probably closer to the truth than it being this wide open affair. It's like, no, we're working on Dota, Left 4 Dead 3, and Half-Life 3 or whatever. Now, among those, you've earned status in the company to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But like, no, game tester, you're gonna fucking test this. And like, entry-level junior developer, like, you're writing the tool for that. Like, we're still assigning. I don't know. I would love to hear more. I would love to read some leaks of whether or not, because this is the handbook, man. I know you're not locked in corporate America. You're kind of on a small company, but I'm in corporate or America, and the handbook is bullshit, man. The handbook is a bunch of sunshine. It's a sunshine pump.
Because we contract for other people who do have to follow policies, sometimes government policies, and you get some of that.
All right. Before we jump into Kickstarter, we got a few Kickstarter-related news items. First one here, mystery cancellation as Kickstarter hits 25,000. So this indie outfit, Elastic Games, they abandoned their Kickstarter after 5 days, but they had raised $25,000 for their first-person shooter called Police Warfare.
How much were they asking for?
You know what? I wonder if I can click through and pull them up. 325,000.
Okay.
They were looking for a lot. But they had 784 backers, $25,000, 5 days into the project, and they kill it. Which, something seems weird here, because this obviously was not failing, but I wonder if we're getting into a point where Kickstarters might be used just to create a negotiation point with a publisher. So, like, you're in talk to the publisher, publishers dragging their feet, because if you watch the extra credits thing on publishers, it's in the publisher's advantage to drag their feet before a contract sign, because you're still working on the game, and they're not paying for it. And then they have to pay less to get the game done. So, while the contract's not signed, of like, hey, you know what? Alright, you're taking forever, we just do a Kickstarter up. look at that, $25,000 in 5 days. We may not need your contract. Oh, look, we're ready to sign now and guarantee all these other things. So yeah, we shut down our Kickstarter. I don't know how Kickstarter could really prevent that, because I know that it's a whole reputation thing, but people aren't going to kickstart games enough for that really to factor in. And when they do it a second time, they may not even be at the same studio. You know, it's like that's going to be unenforceable. But I really hope this isn't a trend.
I don't think it will be a trend, but I think as Kickstarter becomes, matures and becomes this viable option, like, the news stories that kind of look at Kickstarter and say, like, this is the way out of the hell that has been created by the publishers. It's like, no, there's going to be ugly mechanics that kind of come from Kickstarter where people find these loopholes, but overall it will be better.
You gave me this update. Found out about this. The author on somethingawful.com ferreted out that the Ron Paul game, which raised $10,000, asked for $5 and got to $10,000, was based on cut and paste example tutorial code of how to do a platformer in JavaScript, and that the art assets were just lazily skinned.
First, I think it's using GameMaker, so the HTML.
Is it GameMaker? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the
sprites.
The sprites were just inked over sprite sheets from other games like Waluigi and Braid. Just grabbing that sprite sheet.
Not placeholders, but actually like very, very similar.
Right. Not using them as a placeholder and then replacing them with your own, but actually just going into the Braid sprite sheet, tweaking the graphic a little bit, but keeping the whole walk cycle animation, using it. And, the Something Awful guy level is a pretty heavy charge of basically a bait and switch, a rip-off artist of, he's got this done, it's already done, because he put in the least amount of work to it. It's a stupid parody game to get away with it, and now he's going to walk away with $10,000 and not do anything for it. And, he quotes that the project was stated as, your money is going to fund original artwork, original game stuff and all of that. The guy responded in his Kickstarter on a comment of, hey, these guys covered us, kind of thing, whatever. They have the right to make up their own opinion, so a denial without making a denial.
Right.
But again, I hope this isn't, like, we've talked about this. Like, at some point, somebody's going to get burned on Kickstarter. They're going to back something, and the game's never going to be shipped. Or it's going to be some crap like this, of like...
It's not going to look like it's worth the money. Even though $10,000 is arguably not huge.
Not a huge amount, but it's
project.
the damage on the reputation of people who backed it.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that this is a political game. Like, it becomes, especially since, like we were saying before the show, like, Kickstarter is, the free market. And apparently, like I said, apparently...
Which, then, ironically, Ron Paul would love this.
He would love this. I think this is proof that sometimes the invisible hand can be really dumb. But, And I think we're probably more accepting of it as developers, because, placeholders, great.
Next update this week, Republic. So Republic is the iPhone game that looked amazing, because it was basically, this really high production quality. I backed it. I'm interested in playing it. They had stalled out. I had mentioned this on the podcast several times. They'd stalled out around $75,000, and they have a goal of $500,000. And I believe their goal of $500,000 is a condition of getting VC money. So, like, they actually plan to put, like, $1 million, say, into it.
Right.
But if they were like, well, can you prove the viability of this game by having a successful Kickstarter and kickstarting it to $500,000, then we'll give you the rest of the money to make this game. So, their method for picking that number wasn't possibly what they would have done if they didn't have that criteria. Like, they might have said, like, we need 100,000, then they would have gotten that and let it go over. So there's 13 days to go.
This is iOS, so it's not pre-orders. Because I was going to say that if it's pre-order...
No, they say $10 or more, digital iOS edition. So I don't know how that's working. I don't know on the iOS App Store if you can give away unlimited amounts of your game, how that's going to work. Or if they're just going to turn around, release the game, and then buy it back at a discount. I don't know how they intend to do it. Put the game on sale for 99 cents, buy a bunch of copies, and then give them all out to people. I don't know what their intent is, but they say for $10 you get the game. But it's iOS, and we haven't seen mobile games be successful on Kickstarter. Those usually languish and are very hard to get successful because of the limited platform. We talked about this. PC games are what are getting funded. Well, they announced an update, and they've gone PC. So they had their FAQ of like, we really want to do an iPhone game. We're designing it for the iPhone. You know, the whole concept works as an iPhone because your phone is connected to Hope, is the girl's name in the game. Hope's iPhone, and, you know, it's got that tagline, keep Hope alive. Like, you're trying to help her escape this facility she's trapped in, you know? Like, somebody else might, like, find your phone number and like, hey, I'm trapped, can you help me? A really cool idea, and yeah, that works on a mobile phone. But I guess they relented on this when they kind of plateaued and said, no, all right, we're going to do PC and Mac editions. That will be available. Because I think they're using like a Unity engine. So they were using something that they could do this, and they're like, hey, we're going to do a port. We're going to do a proper port. We're not going to crap it up. We'll redo the UI and all of this, and this is not a stretch goal. And they moved $50,000 after announcing that. So they've got 13 days to go, and now that they've announced PC, if they get enough coverage on that, I think they can make it. I think they can get it. Which I hope they do, because I'm still really interested in playing this. I think you have to pledge more than $10, though. $15 to get the desktop edition. So, and $20 if you want both. It may be worth upping my pledge to $20 just because if this actually works, the idea of both, would be good. Not necessarily because I may play through both, but being able to share, that. Alright, so now for Kickstarters of the week. The first one I kind of have up as a example of a good idea. It looks like they can execute, but they've pitched it horribly. So they just started. They have a lot. They have $4,000. They may make their goal of $80,000. Their goal of $80,000 is not too crazy. And what they're pitching basically is this open world. I thought they had more gameplay. So they have a lot of cinematic footage. I thought I saw in this video, and that's why I was trying to fast forward and scrub for everyone and find real quick, more than they got the engine up, and I thought I had more gameplay on this one, but I guess not. But they talk about the engine, and they talk about like the background, and they don't hit you up with the trailer, right? Yeah. Like, sell me on this game.
Do they say if this is gameplay footage or like pre-rendered?
I think it might be 3D because I'm not finding the gameplay footage. There's probably another one I'm confusing this with that I got up here. And they really need to hit more home because they have this in the text. They have this idea of playing gods and you're aligning yourself to a god and that has powers and all of that, and it's like, put this into a story of a hero and you have an insanely successful Kickstarter. Take that away and you have a lot of good tech. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if this one works because I'm going to say they're going to have a rough time to reach their goal. This is just a good tech demo, not a game, and we'll see how that works. The next one that I have up here Acrylis Complex. This is my tip of the hat token nod JRPG of the week, I guess. There seems to be at least one interesting looking JRPG pop up on the week, and
from that intro shot, I was just like, "That's not gonna be JRPG," and then it's like,
I think they even say they talk about how what they've done to the turn-based combat in the system, and let's see if I can get to. Now, the setup and the voiceover that's talking about the game, they spend a lot of time talking about the different characters and not so much time on the story, but they do a pretty good job of, like, giving you some setting of the world and all that. I think if you're into JRPGs, this may be one that you may want to check into. What's this? Note. Rewards for physical material copies will be made available if the goal is met. And, well, that's weird, because you wouldn't do anything if the goal isn't met. They reference inspiration like Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, and Landstalker. I don't know.
I don't know what that is.
They say it's lesser known. All right, next one up here. Legend of Einswald. This one started off, and I was like, oh God. Yeah. You got these guys walking in, there's some voiceover going, in their LARPing outfits, and, oh man, I'm just thinking of the full motion video crap that was on,
well, it looks
Sword and
like,
Hammer.
It looks, yeah, Sword and Hammer. It looks kind of like they're trying to go for Monty Python here.
It's a really okay, fine. You guys, that was good. It's a bad opening to what actually becomes a much more interesting game idea and gameplay. So this is kind of a twist on real-time strategy. Let's see. Let's get to some of the gameplay. That's showing the editor. I know that you guys had gameplay because I watched it. And I was like, oh wow, this is actually, yeah. There you go, you got your guy walking through town and stuff like this. This is more of adventure RPG and some strategy, tactical based fighting. And so it looks like it might be a tactics type derivative game, not having a stop turn-based gameplay, but you are having a turn-based gameplay play out in a very simplified format. I mean, graphically, it looks well. They have 24 days to go still, and they've already got 15,000 of their 50,000 goal, so I'm going to say this one's probably going to get hit. It looks great. And, mixing in RTS and RPG sounds like a good indie concept to explore. It's just this, oh man, the LARPing. Always with the LARPing. Don't put any of that in games.
It's not actually going to be in the game.
I don't think it's in any of the games. I think it's strictly for their Kickstarter video.
Let it not.
It's almost a case of the Kickstarter video being too clever.
This next one here, I put up, I'm losing signal. There we go. This next one I put up is Unemployment Quest. And I put it up because it's already funded. Like, it's the entire video is this guy talking and then showing you his DS loading Korg on his DS, the music synthesizer, and playing you the songs that he's written that will be in the game. There's no gameplay in the video. There are some screens which could be mock-ups, as far as you know.
Is this
that
DS?
Look like it's a JRPG. No, it claims PC.
Okay. I just thought it was weird. Like
you can get it on CD for $10. He'll send it to you on CD. For $5, you get the game. It's already funded to 200%. He asked for $1,000, and it's already at 2,260 backers. So I think this has a lot to do with just the idea of unemployment quest. People saw the name, and $5, they got the money. So I think this flies against the conventions that we've talked about, but it does highlight that there's room for, hey guys, stupid game idea.
Well, I mean, it kind of has the I made a game with zombies in it type of thing. It's the type of thing that would go viral just because it's so wacky and yet actually looks to be done well.
The
hell?
Nuclear Force, Vampire versus Unicorns. This has a lot...
Get that out of your mouth.
Of...
God, no.
What?
This has a lot of setup and story behind it for what is a bullet hell shooter, which I haven't seen many bullet hell shooters on the service. But essentially, you're like a princess who's secretly a vampire who drinks unicorn blood instead of human blood, I guess, and now you're at war with the unicorns or something. I don't know. I didn't quite follow the story completely, but this is PC and Xbox 360. So this is an Xbox Live indie title. So the Xbox Live indie title has 3 backers at $90 of his $3,000 goal. And I think this came out fairly recent. I think this came out like today. Art looks pretty good.
I actually have some...
A lot of gameplay is up and going. So I didn't read into like, okay, what do we need to really, hit this home? Why are we kickstarting at $3,000? But at this point, I'm really not interested in why you are on Kickstarter. It's pre-sales. So if you're on Kickstarter just to do pre-orders of the game, I think that's fine. I don't think there's anything... we kind of got into this talk in XNA chat about a different game. And it looked like it was completely done, and there was nothing to spend the money on, and it was just like, oh, he's just trying to get, evil developers trying to swindle people and get Kickstarter funds that he doesn't actually need. And it's like, well, it's pre-orders. People are buying the game, so...
And for $3,000, he can spend that. There's still places where you could spend that on music and art assets and things like that.
And what if he maxed out his credit cards just to do this?
True.
Yeah.
True. So I'm not really concerned as to why you're on Kickstarter, just that it's an interesting game, because I just look at it as a pre-order. This might be the one that I was talking about earlier that fills a lot with gameplay.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of running around. And not until over halfway into the video of running around and swinging swords, you start getting to this, like, okay, you mine, got that, and, oh, wait, you dig? And then, like, oh, he's hollowing out a cave. It's Minecraft without voxels, with actual terrain deformation going on.
I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, it seems extremely complicated. But
it does seem. It seems like it'll be frustrating to build. Without having that nice, even block structure to know where things are going to go. Because, like, as you watch him in the video, like, he's obviously not in the control as to how it, like, deforms, right? It just kind of like...
it's even pre-generated, like...
Well, not that it isn't pre-generated, but it's deformable terrain. But you may not have tight control over how it deforms. So
Right.
If you're trying to get something just so for your castle, like, it seems like there might be a lot of trial and error happening for that. He goes out of his way to call it a sandbox game. I don't even know if he references Minecraft. It really took until watching the video almost to the end to realize what he was talking about sandbox game, RPG without character development, you know, I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What's in this game? And then to realize it's Minecraft. So I don't know. 250,000 is a steep order for an indie title to put up there. I mean, $250,000 is a Tim Schafer, Owl, you know, like names.
This is a very ambitious, complex sort of engine. It sounds like he's trying to build. So
It is, but that seems like a high bar to set for an indie studio.
oh yeah. It's not exactly. I don't know if he's got any history, but
The one I was talking about earlier was actually the hardest platformer ever. And this does not look interesting at all. So this is like an early version of the game. And where's... like you can see him just going through jumping. And now, like, here's the current version of the game. And this does not look fun at all. Like, I don't...
But we didn't particularly like the Impossible game, so there you go. Maybe.
No, but I mean, this even looks worse than the Impossible game. I mean, this looks worse than Super Meat Boy. This looks...
That looks like it's a heartburn waiting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, look at this.
No.
How would you ever know how to get through this?
No.
Painful trial and error.
That's somebody who hates themselves.
Hates themselves and everybody they've ever met. And their cats. You know? So what's weird is that this was the one that set up the conversation of, well, this game looks done. What do you need $20,000 for? I didn't dive into reading on the game and so what they use, but again, I don't really care. It is pre-orders, but man, that's just... I just had to point the game out. I'm pointing the game out for the game idea of, like, I don't know who wants to play that. That does not look fun at all.
It seems like the type of thing that it's like some people eat food that is completely stupidly spicy just to prove they can.
No, this is like, say, going to a Chinese restaurant, like, no, a Japanese restaurant and saying, I want to try the fugu by an unlicensed fugu expert.
Yes.
So, do you like steampunk, Dylan?
It's okay.
Do you like platformers?
They're okay.
How about a
Depending.
steampunk platformer?
It was kind of bound to happen, I guess. Steampunk is
accepting
thing
the weird, like, hey, let's put my child on camera that's not really playing well, dude, on Kickstarter. Not doing what you thought it was doing. Like, oh, I'm going to give you money because you have a daughter. No. The graphics look exquisite in this game. I mean, this is one of the best looking games I've ever seen, period. And to do, you know, a really novel steampunk style platformer looks like the charm can carry it a very long way. I hope to see this get funded. I mean, I haven't gone in and backed it, but it does look like this should get funded. This should get built. This should get made. Now he's showing you here. He worked on Alice in Wonderland, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and some other things. Like, so he is a professional animator.
Wait, Alice in Wonderland.
I guess it was like a Disney's update, Alice in Wonderland, and he worked on it, or maybe it's straight to DVD. I don't know. It was on his slide there. But Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, you know. So he's a Pixar level guy. I don't know that he was actually at Pixar, but he has that chops and those talents, and obviously he can get some of the game up and going. And this looks amazing. This is something to check out if you're looking for something to back. I see this getting funded. He's asking for $12,000. I see it getting funded. I see it pretty well. Again, I think it would have been better for launched into a trailer, but I think this is the one that I watched that at the end of the video is the trailer. So, like, after the explanation, like, there's a trailer at the end, and it's like, should have opened with the trailer,
Yeah, and then gone into the gameplay and the rest.
And again, that just comes back to what we keep saying, like, look at it as pre-order sales. It's pre-order sales. What would you do for pre-order? You would show people the trailer. With that. So, I think it's going to do it for tonight. I think we're good. I think this is a show. This is in the can. Ended up being the collision detection show. So,
among other things. And the TV,
yeah, and TV and all that. We got a little sidetracked there, but we had a pretty good on-topic conversation, I think. So thank you, everyone, for tuning into the live stream. Thank you, everyone who downloads the podcast or watches us on YouTube. We will be back and do this again in a week.